Today, we're diving into a hidden force, a secret architecture that explains why some brands just dominate, while others, maybe even with better products, struggle to be seen. It's a strategy that allows the best in the world to make their competition completely irrelevant. This is the story of the Perceptual Reframing Engine. Just think about that for a moment. Right now, as we speak, someone is looking at what you offer. They see the price, they scan the features, and in a fraction of a second, their brain makes a decision. It files you away. It puts you on a mental shelf, right next to something that costs a fraction of what you do. And just like that, the sale is lost. You've been trapped. Not because your product isn't good enough, but because the context, the frame you're in, is all wrong. So how do we get off that shelf? Well, our journey today is broken down into 6 parts. First, we'll diagnose the core problem, a hidden battle I call the comparison war. Then we'll jump back in time to see how a market crisis forced this new way of thinking. We'll pop the hood on the reframing engine itself, explore the deep psychology that makes it tick, and then I'll hand you the blueprint to architect perception for yourself. And finally, we'll land on the single insight that bridges that gap to real, lasting value. All right, let's start with this invisible battle. It's a fight that most companies don't even realize they're in. It happens entirely inside the customer's mind, and it's called the comparison war. You know, from the moment we start thinking about business, we're taught a very simple formula for success. Just be better. Add another feature. Make the design cleaner. Move faster than everyone else. This is what the source material calls the Betterment Illusion. And honestly, it's one of the most dangerous traps out there. It's this belief that the market is some rational, objective place that will fairly evaluate your product, see its superiority, and just reward you. But the market isn't a lab. It's a crowded, noisy, chaotic arena. And just being better, well, that's almost never enough. And that leads us to this huge paradox that really defines the modern market. The actual value of a product, what someone is willing to pay for it, has surprisingly little to do with the product itself. It's almost entirely driven by the context it's placed in. I mean, think about it. Imagine a genius piece of software sold on some cluttered, amateur-looking website. Now picture a much simpler tool, but it's presented as the secret weapon of industry titans. The product might be the same, but the context, it changes everything. So let me ask you this, and it's a critical question. Who is choosing the mental shelf your product sits on? Are you strategically, deliberately putting it there, or are you just leaving it up to chance, letting your customers, and worse, your competitors, make that decision for you? Because if you let the customer choose the shelf, you're basically handing them the power to set your price. The person who controls the context controls the profit, period. Now, this whole way of thinking, it wasn't dreamed up in some quiet marketing meeting. It was forged in the middle of a crisis. Let's take a look at the market forces that turned perceptual reframing from a clever idea into an absolute survival skill. So, back in the mid-2020s, the ground started to shift. Technical perfection, which used to be this huge selling point, suddenly became the bare minimum. You know, everyone could build a beautiful app. Every agency could produce slick work. The barrier to being good enough just evaporated. And when everyone is screaming that they're the best, the word best starts to mean absolutely nothing. For premium brands, it was a total disaster. How do you justify a high price when some new tool can deliver 80% of your result for a tenth of the cost? The data from that time is brutal. Brands that kept competing on features just watched their margins get destroyed because they were being mentally shelved right next to cheap alternatives. This crisis forced a really painful but really necessary evolution. The companies that made it through, the ones that thrived, pioneers like Salesforce and HubSpot, they had this profound aha moment. They realized they weren't just selling software, they were creating entirely new categories. They stopped obsessing over feature comparison charts and started obsessing over the real estate in their customers' minds. The goal wasn't just to be the best option on the shelf anymore. It was to build a whole new shelf. They got it. Customers weren't just buying a better tool. They were buying a new philosophy, a new way to win. Okay, so that brings us to the engine itself. And I want to be clear, this isn't just about a new logo or a catchy tagline. This is a deliberate, engineered system designed to completely shift how people see you. So let's take a look under the hood of the Perceptual Reframing Engine. At its core, the engine is what you could call a 4-stage linguistic pivot. It all starts with a comparison audit. From there, you identify the category curse. Then you reveal a third way. And finally, you achieve something called a categorical lock. Let's break each of those down. Stage 1 is all about a radical shift in your own perspective. You have to stop looking at your product and start looking through your customer's eyes. What are their default assumptions? Before you say a word, what category do they just instinctively drop you into? If you're a consulting firm, do they just see you as another agency? If you're a software tool, are you just another app? This default category, that's your anchor. It's the weight that's dragging your price down because it comes with all these preconceived notions about what you're worth. Your first job is to find that anchor. Okay, now stage 2 is where this gets really powerful. You find the built-in frustrations of that default category, the category curse, and you weaponize them. Every single industry has something that everybody secretly hates. Consultants are all talk and no action, or this kind of software is always a nightmare to set up. You find that universal pain point and you turn the old way of doing things into the villain of your story. And this is so smart because you're not trying to convince people they have a problem, you're just giving a name to a frustration they already feel deep down. You're not just a vendor anymore, you're leading a rebellion against a common enemy. This is the pivot point. You have to resist that temptation to just be a slightly better version of the old thing. Instead, you introduce a brand new category, a third way. You're not selling email marketing anymore. You're providing customer lifecycle orchestration. You're not a web designer, you're a digital experience architect. The new name is so important. It can't just be clever. It has to signal a total shift in philosophy. It has to imply a higher status result, an outcome that the old category by its very nature can't possibly deliver. And finally, stage 4, the categorical lock. This is where discipline is everything. It's about total, unwavering consistency. Every single word on your website, every line in your sales deck, your pricing structure, the way you tell your customer stories, everything has to reinforce the new category. You are systematically erasing the old vocabulary and replacing it with your own. You're not just building a product anymore, you're building a new language for your entire market. And that is how you escape the gravitational pull of that old price anchor. So why does this work so incredibly well? It's not magic, it's psychology. The reframing engine is basically built on top of these fundamental, hardwired shortcuts in our brains that control how we all perceive value. The whole engine really runs on a powerful cognitive bias called the framing effect. This is a core principle from behavioral economics, and it's been proven over and over again. It basically says that our choices aren't based on objective reality, they're based on how that reality is presented to us. The same exact information, the same product, the same price can feel good or bad depending entirely on the frame that surrounds it. It is the master key to pricing power. Let's make this really concrete with a simple analogy, okay? Picture a bottle of wine. Let's say it's a genuinely good wine that costs $50 to produce. Now imagine trying to sell that wine by pouring it into a flimsy plastic cup under the harsh fluorescent lights of a gas station. What's your immediate reaction? It feels like a total ripoff, right? Absurdly expensive. And why? Because the context, the gas station, the cheap cup, the smell of gasoline, it all just screams low value. The frame has completely torpedoed the product. Okay, now let's take that exact same wine, but this time we're in the lobby of a 5-star hotel. There's soft music playing, a sommelier comes over and pours it into a beautiful, sparkling crystal glass. The price on the menu is $50. What's the perception now? It feels like a bargain, an amazing deal. The wine is identical, the price is identical. The only thing that changed was the context. Your product is the wine. Your marketing, your branding, your category design, that's the crystal glass. And the reason this works is because it plays right into how our brains are wired. Our brains are, for lack of a better word, lazy. They're built to conserve energy, which means they absolutely hate complexity. So, to deal with all the information we're bombarded with, our brains use shortcuts. They sort everything into these little mental folders. It's called cognitive categorization. So when a customer sees your product, their brain instantly tries to figure out which folder to put it in. And if it looks and sounds like everything else, it gets tossed right into the tactical expense folder. And everything in that folder gets judged on one thing: price. Your job is to create a new context, a new category that forces their brain to create a brand new folder, the strategic asset folder. And in that folder, the conversation is no longer about cost, it's about return. Okay, so we've got the why, now let's get into the how. How do you actually do this? This is the blueprint for becoming an architect of perception, not just another marketer. So let's get practical. The blueprint for this has 3 main phases. First, you have to be brutally honest and map out the mental shelf where you live right now. Second, you engineer something called a category inversion, where you define yourself against the flaws of your industry. And third, you implement this new standard with absolute, relentless consistency. This table right here, this is the heart of category inversion. It's about defining yourself by what you are not. You name the villain, the old way, and you position yourself as the exact opposite, the new standard. Look at these examples. The villain is the slow agency. The hero is the strategic partner. See? It's not just a word change, it's a relationship change. Or this one, the villain is complex software. The new standard is a new way to win. It reframes the whole thing from a bunch of features into a strategic outcome. And my favorite, the villain is the tactical expense, something you try to minimize. The new standard is the strategic asset, something you invest in. Every single one of these immediately elevates the conversation and puts a huge gap between you and everyone else. I think it's important to say that taking this path requires real courage. When you first step out and create a new category, when you put yourself on a new shelf all by yourself, you're probably going to be misunderstood for a little while. Some people just won't get it. But that momentary confusion is such a small price to pay, because the alternative is to just be another face in the crowd, perfectly understood and completely ignored. And that brings us to our final part, the big takeaway. This is where the cool logic of strategy meets the warm reality of human psychology. This is the bridge to real value. So we come back to that fundamental question. How can one company charge $10,000 for something that on the surface looks a lot like a $100 alternative? The answer, as we've seen, has absolutely nothing to do with features. It has nothing to do with lines of code or hours billed. That price is justified by the context. It's earned by creating a new category, starting a new conversation, and promising a new kind of result that the old category could never even dream of delivering. When you boil it all down, what we've really explored today is a whole new philosophy of growth. It's not about being louder or moving faster. It's not about brute force. It's about elegant design. It's about building a bridge of context that allows your best customers to walk right over that canyon of commodity. Because the best marketing doesn't push people through a funnel, it pulls them toward value. It pulls them toward a new and better understanding. And that single idea, well, that can change everything.